second day of the ASU+GSV Emeritus Summit. Yesterday was fantastic. For those having the pleasure of meeting, my name is Michael Moe. I'm with GSV. And yesterday was great. We're looking for even a better day today. But thank you for being here. So with my talk this morning, at the heart of GSV, we're about ideas and entrepreneurship and changing the world for good. I say, what we're looking for is the stars of tomorrow today. So the title of my talk is Star Search. And the fundamental question is, where do big companies come from? Well, just as trees don't start as trees, they start as acorns. Big companies don't start as big companies, they start as small companies. So when Amazon started, it was basically on the way from New York to Seattle with Jeff Bezos and his then wife, and ultimately ended up with this idea of selling books online. This was Amazon's world headquarters in the early days. It was obviously a far stretch from what it is today, with Amazon with $620 billion of revenue, a $2.5 trillion market cap. NVIDIA started at Denny's Diner in San Jose, and obviously 35 years later, a $3 trillion market cap. 78% of all the employees at NVIDIA are millionaires. In fact, 50% of the employees are worth $25 million or more. Google started on a napkin at a famous restaurant in Silicon Valley called Bucks, which basically was just down the street from GSV's offices in Silicon Valley. Today, obviously, Google is a behemoth with many different businesses, but its core search business, there's 99,000 searches per second. The Android platform has a 72% global market share for an operating system. I think this is stunning. YouTube is 1 billion hours watched per day on the YouTube platform. And it's the largest education business in the world, arguably. And when Chrome has 3.5 billion users, basically half of the internet's population. So in terms of where these big ideas start, actually there's an office building on University Avenue in Palo Alto called the Karma Building, because PayPal, Google, Logitech, and many others started in this office space. This is Apple Computer with Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs in 1976, when Apple had this idea of creating this insanely great computer. And that's what an insanely great computer looked like in 1976. Today, Apple, $3.5 trillion market cap in the spaceship headquarters in Silicon Valley. Another kind of interesting way to start, this was Fred Smith's Yale research paper to his senior thesis, which his professor gave him a C with his idea for Federal Express. He said, to get better than a C, you needed to have an idea that was actually plausible. It's a good thing that Fred Smith didn't listen to his Yale professor. He started Federal Express anyway, but like many young businesses, it took more time, it took more money, and he was down to his last $5,000 in the bank account on Friday afternoon, and he did what any great entrepreneur would do. He went to Las Vegas, took that $5,000, turned it into $27,000. Federal Express planes flew that next morning, literally doing whatever it took. Reliance Industries started in 1958, trading yarn. Today, over $200 billion in revenue, over 200 businesses. Tata started in 1868 with $250 in capital as a trading company. Today has 1 million employees. This is Starbucks coffee when it started in Pike's Place in Seattle, Washington in 1971. Today, Starbucks serves 5 million cups per day in the U.S., has 40,000 units around the world. So I wrote a book in 2007 called Finding the Next Starbucks, because I was lucky enough to be the first person to write research on Starbucks coffee. And that experience really shaped a lot of the ways that I look at how you identify and invest in the stars of tomorrow, because Starbucks is really a case study of a great growth business. So what are some of the things I learned? First of all, over time, it's really the revenue growth that drives stock price. In fact, over time, they're about 100% correlated. So you look at Tesla, which was the #1 performing stock of the last 10 years. NVIDIA rivaled it. Tesla's stock grew at 61%, but that's because its revenue grew 62% during that period of time. Google, since its IPO, has grown its revenue at 27%, and not coincidentally, its stock has grown at 27% as well. ServiceNow, another example, grew its stock at 41%, revenue grew at 39%. The point is, ultimately, it's growth that drives enterprise value. So how do you identify companies that can have high and sustainable growth for a long time? The formula that we developed, really kind of by accident initially, we call the 5 Ps, because it's these 5 Ps that are the common denominators in every great growth company that we've ever been involved in. These small companies that have big potential to have the opportunity to become large over time. And the first P being the most important, people, product potential, predictability, and purpose. So going back to the Starbucks example, Howard Schultz, when I met him when he was 38 years old, had braces on his teeth. There was nothing in his resume that was telling you that he was going to be the amazing CEO that he was. But what you saw with him was a person with a clear vision and passion for being able to execute on something that nobody thought was possible, and he was able to create the people around him to believe in that same vision. Product is more than just the product itself, but it's the people that go along with that product, and Starbucks nailed that formula in a huge way. In fact, one of the initial strategies was to treat these people so well that they were going to be the biggest asset of the organization. Third P is potential. How big can a company become? What are the trends? How big is the market? What kind of problem are they solving? Predictability, how visible is that growth? And you think with a restaurant, you say, well, that's completely unpredictable. But in Starbucks' case, they were able to create a product that their average customer went there 21 times a month. So it became a thesis of mine that I love businesses that are addictive, that don't cause cancer. And the 5th P is purpose. And this is a key element, and we certainly, when we look at GSV Ventures and the companies we're looking to back and fund, it's more about than just how do you make revenue. It's really about what are you doing to create impact in the world. In the Starbucks case, 40 years ago, Howard Schultz's vision was he was going to change the world one cup of coffee at a time. In fact, he did. So that formula allowed us to invest in companies like Facebook when it was private, today $1.8 trillion market cap, Palantir, now today a $233 billion market value, Spotify $122 billion market price, but that was really that 5P formula that would enable us to do this. Also taking those lessons that we've learned, be involved in a number of amazing growth companies, we actually created an online MBA a couple of years ago that Forbes ranked as one of the top online MBAs for entrepreneurship last year. Second book I wrote is called The Global Silicon Valley Handbook, and we started GSV in 2010. It was really our thesis that the mindset of entrepreneurship and innovation that made Silicon Valley so special was going to spread throughout the world, and we wanted to connect Silicon Valley to this emerging global Silicon Valley. In 2010, 92% of all venture capital was the United States, and most of that was in Silicon Valley between San Jose and San Francisco. Last year, over 60% of all venture capital was outside the United States. So this whole global Silicon Valley has really taken off, and what that means is we believe that talent's everywhere, but opportunity isn't. But now you're seeing this marketplace evolve where you can have a dynamic, innovative entrepreneurial company anywhere. We say from Austin to Boston, from Chicago to Sao Paulo, from Mumbai to Shanghai to Dubai. That's what we call the global Silicon Valley. So as we look out and where's the opportunity going, we talk about the learning space. One thing that is a fundamental for the last 3,000 years is human capabilities has been growing on a linear path. And technology, though, is on an exponential curve. And we're here. And what this means is pretty soon the technology is going to replace the technologist if we don't do something about it. And now we've got this new catalyst called AI, which we say is like air. It's invisible, it's ubiquitous, and you're going to need it to live. And so as we think about how AI both is a disruptor, but also an enabler, we've created some different themes that we think that are key to these companies of tomorrow that have huge opportunity. One is the time dividend that we think AI creates that allows us to do other things, including learning, that are key fundamentals to this. Something I call moneyballing everything by being able to use real-time statistics analysis to make decisions as opposed to wise tales or rumors. Multiplication by division, and this is the idea, it really goes back to the Adam Smith pin factory and the division of labor. And what AI is going to enable us to do is divide labor. What AI can do particularly well is let humans spend more time on developing what they do especially well. And all this adds up to what we call learning at the speed of light. And that is taking that linear curve and really putting it on the exponential curve to let humankind develop in a way that we believe is incredibly exciting for the future in a world that truly is seeing innovation explode. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the third book I wrote. Now, by the way, I'm the only person you've ever met who's written more books than he's read. I'm kidding. But in this book, it really incorporated this idea of purpose and the idea that we think the great businesses of tomorrow are going to combine purpose and profits. They're going to have the ambition of a for-profit and the heart of a not-for-profit. And we call this values investing. There's value investors, there's growth investors, but we're values investors. So, and the important piece about that, what we're looking at, back to these 4 Ps, what are you looking for? You're looking for smarts and hearts. And by the way, with that, you don't know what color skin somebody is, you don't know what gender they are. You're really evaluating what's in their heart and what's in their mind and brain. So as we think about the future and we're extremely excited about, and frankly what this summit is about, when you look at what education's for and how we develop talents to fulfill their God-given potential, it's about creating meaning through learning, purpose through work, and that's what it's all about. So with that, I'll close with make your dash count. That just make your life, your time here, all that it can be, and we think that's the core foundation of that is what you get through quality education. So now, that was a quick tour in 10 minutes or less or something like that. But now it's really been a treat for me to have the opportunity to interview somebody who's an amazing person, amazing entrepreneur, and somebody that I've been paying close attention for a long time, and that's Ronnie Scruala, who was the founder of UTV. He was the chairman of UpGrad. He's been involved in a number of successful enterprises, Shark Tank in India, and many other successful endeavors. And so we're going to have a conversation for the next 25 minutes and go from there. So Ronnie, with that, please give him a round of a hand.